Hello, 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 and thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Carmen Ray, and I am the founder of Be Well Travel and Lifestyle Magazine. We are a community and a company that's really committed to women entrepreneurs. We have a mission to make sure that we create spaces in our magazine and our live events to just help women entrepreneurs to be well connected, to be well informed, and to be well inspired. Now, we all know that business can require us to have a lot of serious topics, but I'm a firm believer that we need a little balance. Sometimes we just need to add a little fun, something that's not so business like to the conversation. So you are in for a treat. Today, I am I'm going to be broadcasting with my sister in success, Aisha Isreal. She is one of our publishing partners with Be Well Magazine. And we are going to be talking about, listen, guys, the drama, the trauma, and the testimony. And we're going to be leveraging the conversation from Reesa Teesa. Yes. I don't know about you all, but listen, my daughters, they knew about it. I don't know how they was watching all this right up under my nose. I just know my youngest daughter, Imani, kept saying, I'm just addicted to Reesa. She was saying in our little group chat, but listen, I didn't know anything about it. Then by the time I get it to my oldest daughter, she said, oh, I already watched it. And I watched it all in one day. But what I'm so excited about our special guest today, because I know if other women are anything like me, I left from those 50 episodes feeling convicted. I was like, oh, I remember times I was definitely acting like Reesa. Oh, I did have some lesions in my life. I didn't know how to feel. So what I wanted to do is to create an opportunity for us to have some solutions and to what happens if a person experiences some of those same things, those same traumatic experiences in a relationship, but I want to let you know there's a such thing as having a happy ending. I am so thrilled for you guys to hear from Aisha because now she has an amazing husband. She has her soulmate. She has went through the drama, trauma, and she has a testimony about her happy ending. But she's gonna share with us some of the things and some of the pitfalls and red flags that can come about in relationships. The other reason why I'm super excited to have her on board because she has some solutions. Yes, she has a book. The book is End of Silent Suffering, What Every Spouse of a Sex Addict Should Know. So just from that title, you know there was some drama and some trauma, but she has gotten on the other end of this. And I want us to just be able to highlight what healing looks like. So welcome, Aisha. How are you feeling today?
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm feeling great. It's Sunday
Yeah.
and I'm relaxing today, so it feels good.
Good. Well, I just honestly could not have thought of anybody better that I wanted to have this conversation with. And so let's talk a little bit. Let's bring our audience up to like how did we connect? Because you at the time that I met you, you were with your first husband. So tell us a little bit about that so we can connect the dots for our listeners.
Okay, so am I connecting the dots with my relationship when we met or how you and I
Yeah.
actually met?
Yeah, with the relationship because that was at the time that I met you is when you were with your first husband, the one that
That we're talking about.
contributed to the trauma and the drama. Yes.
Okay, so I do remember you and I met because I was a director at a certain organization, and you have been an entrepreneur for a long time, and you were hosting a couples retreat. I
Yes.
remember, and
Yes.
so my husband and I at the time went to the couples retreat. I thought the couples retreat was amazing. And honestly, it did us some good. I mean, like we had a great time. We even considered like, okay, we learned a lot from this. We could actually probably help couples repair and all of that. However, kind of like Reesa Teesa situation. A lot of it was a facade. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, we went through a lot. It just was a very um, interesting time in the sense that when I came to the end of it and was getting past it, it really felt like I had been in like a 20-year coma. It's
Wow.
very interesting.
That is so deep. That is so deep. And as we kind of think about these relationships and when we experience trauma, we can never see what's really going on in a relationship from the outside. We have no idea. Because I remember you guys looking like the picture perfect couple, young, beautiful, professional, like y'all had it going on. And I remember y'all being a part of the couples retreat. So it's just so important that we don't see things on social media or we go and we think we know what's going on in somebody's life. We have no idea what's going on in people's lives. So we don't want to. I think sometimes a lot of women find themselves being desperate for the ideal of marriage and love. But I know all too well that the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a situation where you find yourself sleeping with the devil. so,
Absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
so it's
Yeah,
important that we just, really, really be realistic and know that all that glitter is not gold. But I tell you one thing that when I see you and your husband now, it just because I'm a hopeless romantic, I'm like, yes, they're still, yes, we shout out for Black love. I mean, you
yes,
guys, you
yes,
just really can feel, not just look, but you can feel the love and the respect. So I want
yes,
our listeners to just be excited about the happy ending. But
yes.
before we get to the happy ending, y'all, we're gonna
Ending.
talk about this whole thing a little bit. So tell
Yes.
me, Aisha, how many parts of the 50-part Reesa Teesa TikTok series did you get a chance to watch?
Girl, you know I watched all 50 parts. I watched all 50 parts. Now it took me probably about a week, but all 50. And well, let me say this. I didn't necessarily watch all of it because my schedule is so tight and I have so much on my plate. I kind of treated it like an audiobook. And
Okay,
so I would listen to it in my car. And so every time I was in the car, like I didn't even listen to music. I was like, let me get to the the
right.
Reesa story. But I
Well,
listened to all
very
40
good.
parts. It's been shorter than a week, but it's about over a couple days.
Yes, yes, yes. I binge watched it. My girls, they couldn't believe it. I watched it all in one day. Like
Oh
I'm
my
I'm
God.
usually in the bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Do you know
Yeah.
I stayed up until 3 in the morning and watched it all in one day? So so
I
it
couldn't do
was
that.
crazy. I mean, I say I listened to it because I didn't really need to watch it unless
Right.
but I listened to it. It was mind blowing.
Yes.
So tell me
Agreed.
this. Reesa Teesa and her ex-husband, they knew each other for a little while, just a little while. And this is
Mhm.
during the pandemic, so we got to give her some grace because everybody was a little crazy during the
Yes.
pandemic. But about how many weeks before they and how many months before they actually start cohabitating? Do you remember that a little bit?
I think she said something like a couple weeks. I don't think it was
Like,
long at all. At the most, it was like a couple months. I don't
wow.
remember exactly, but it was very short. Very
Yes.
short.
Yes, it was very, very short, and I was cracking up. Yeah, yeah. There's a couple parts in it that I'm just gonna have to bring some humor to, and so how was that? How was her as far as timeline? How did that relate to with you and your first husband? As far as like how long between the time y'all met and got married?
So honestly, our relationship was so I met him when I was living in Chicago, and we dated for a few months before I moved back to Los Angeles. And then lived in Los Angeles for about a year and a half, and we continued to like, because I wouldn't call it dating because it was a long distance relationship, but we decided to stay in a relationship over that period of time. And then I moved back to Chicago after a year and a half, and then we dated for like 2 more years. So we dated for about 4 years, um, before we
Mhm.
actually got married.
Okay,
I
okay.
think we moved in together probably like 3 months before we actually got married.
Okay, all right, but you guys had a more extended period of time as far as the dating part.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
we were a lot younger. Like I met him when I was 22.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. So Reesa Teesa, she mentioned about her ex-husband. They met through online dating. So tell me about, what do you think about online dating? And does that kind of compare to any experience that you had with online dating? Because that is really a thing now.
It is. And so no, like I said, I was 22 years old. I don't know that online dating was a thing then.
Right.
I met him through my cousin. So at the time, I was living with two of my cousins. We were roommates.
Mhm.
And the younger of the two cousins, she's a socialite. Like and so she would bring her coworkers back to the apartment after work. And so he was one of those coworkers. So
Okay.
I met him through my coworker. So I think in the back of my mind, I just kind of felt like it was safe.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, it's not really about the online dating, but it wasn't. I didn't vet him really.
Right, right, right. And sometimes when we meet people, it give us a false sense of security if somebody else know of them.
Right,
Well, at least he just not a random off the street.
right,
At least he works with my cousin or whatever. Yes, I can
exactly.
definitely see that happening. And so, in one of the 50 parts, Risa talked about her first red flag. So, when did you notice your first red flags in your relationship?
Wow. Okay, so my timeline is it was so much farther longer ago that I don't think everything is as clear for me
Mhm.
as it was for Reesa Teesa. But I do remember after I had moved back to Los Angeles for that period of time that we had the long distance relationship. I
Mhm.
remember him sending me a letter. Well, he sent me like we were right because that was back, before
Yeah.
we would write letters. And so I remember him sending me letters, and he would address the letters with his first, middle, and last name. No big deal, right? And so I used to call him by his middle name because I thought that was cuter than his first name. It was kind of like a nickname. Nobody else was calling him that. And I did that for like 2 years, even, after I moved back to Chicago. And then it was when I saw his driver's license for something. I don't remember what the reason was. And I was like, "Well, what's this name on your driver's license?" That middle name never existed. He just made that up. So I was like, well, who does that? I remember thinking that, like, why would
Wow.
you make up I just didn't understand that part. Like, I never had experienced anybody that would do that. Like, if you didn't like your middle name, just don't tell me your middle name. Like, why would you make up a whole and let me call you that, thinking that's your real name? So
Right.
that was a red flag. I was like, something is just off. But
Wow.
it wasn't like major. Like he didn't like I wasn't aware of him like trying to buy something in that name or anything. It just was like in the back of my mind, like, that's weird.
Yes, I see Monty in the comments. She said, "Wow," and then Grandma's World said, "That's scary." Yeah,
Right.
but those are kind of things that puzzle our brain, but it don't necessarily make you dismiss how you feel about the person. But it is could definitely be seen as a red flag.
Yeah.
So, so do you feel like you seen anything significant before you made the decision to get married to him?
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of red flags, but a lot of times I attributed the red flags to immaturity. Just because I had always heard, and I had a degree in psychology, so I had learned that women mature faster than men. And so some of the things he would do, I'd be like, well, he's just immature. We're young. Like he's got time to mature. And if he's around me, he'll get it together.
Yes, yes.
Those type of things. But I do remember while I was in Los Angeles and we were talking on the phone, he was telling me, I think his uncle was a lawyer. And so he was telling me, like, there would be times that he wouldn't answer his phone, or it would be like a long time before he would get back to me. And I'm like, what's going on? And so eventually he told me that he was going to court. He had a court case, and his lawyer, I mean, his uncle, who was a lawyer, was helping him out with this court case. So of course I'm like, okay, well, what's the court case about? Now, up until this time, I'm just knowing, he was my cousin's friend and he lived in Chicago. And of course we had learned a lot about each other, but nothing where I would, court fit into this picture. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what's going on? Why are you going to court? And so he told me that he was falsely arrested and falsely accused of drug possession with
Mm-hmm.
intent to sell, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's interesting. How do they falsely accuse you of drug possession with intent to sell? That sounds like a really big charge. And he
Right.
was like, yeah, well, that's why I had to get a lawyer. It wasn't like just a little, what do you call it? Like a public defender type of situation. So I'm like, okay. So, as time went on, I would check in, like, how's it going? He's like, it sounds like it's going well. Case probably going to be dismissed. My uncle's really good or whatever. So I'm like, okay. And so after a while, I didn't hear anything else about the court case. And
Mm-hmm.
it was right around the time that I moved back to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him, I'm like, well, whatever happened with the court case? And then, as it turned out, I'm trying, because like I said, my memory is a little bit foggy, but I
Yes.
remember finding out that he was dating a girl while I was living in Los Angeles.
Mm.
And so it was kind of like, well, wow, because I thought we were exclusive. But then again, I'm like, I don't remember if we ever said we were.
Yes.
Um, and so I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really make that big, like I was hurt, but I didn't make a big deal about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there came a time where I was like, well, let me know what we're doing. Are you choosing her? Are you choosing me? Are we just dating, or what's going on?
Right.
So he told me that he wanted to be with me.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that didn't make the other girl happy. And so
Mm-hmm.
she started reaching out to me. And so she told me that he was going to court because he had been accused of sexual assault at his job.
Wow.
Like, so when I approached him about it, he was like, she's just jealous because I broke up with her. So, of course that stays in the back of your mind, but I had no proof of any of it. And so when I had met his uncle, and his uncle didn't tell me anything about the case, he's like, that's confidential information. So I didn't know what was real. Right.
Right.
So it was like, it was nothing else that I could do about it, but I am the type of person that I really want to get the answer. But anyway, with that was a big red flag, just the whole court case situation and me not being able to have answers. But because I couldn't find answers, I didn't press it.
Mm-hmm.
But he also was a musical recording artist, and
Mm.
like I went to the studio with him, so, and I had plenty of evidence that he really was a recording artist, and he was gifted. So I mean, like, he had talent. So a lot of the things that he would tell me were believable, and one of the and it might even be real. I don't know.
Right.
I'm like Reesa Teesa, like, I don't know what's real and what's not at
Yes.
this point. But he had told me that he had been offered a record deal with Jive Records. And so I'm like, okay, so where is this record deal? And he was like, well, I told him if they weren't taking me and my boys, that I didn't want it. And I just remember thinking in the back of my mind, well, that was the dumbest thing I ever heard. Who does that? So it was a
Mhm.
lot of those type of things where it was like, who does that?
Right.
Um, yeah. And I think probably one more red flag. And I don't know. I just was young, and I mean,
Yes.
because there will be long periods of time between these red flags. And so
Uh-huh.
in between the red flags, we were friends. Like, we got along. We were both musically inclined. We were both athletically inclined. Like, we had a lot in common. We watched sport games together. We, like, you know what I mean? It was just a lot of
Yes.
things, right? And so during the times that were good, I wasn't thinking about the red flags.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, but I remember he worked at this place. Well, I'll be like Reesa Teesa. I won't say where he worked, but he worked at this place, and I remember picking him up. He would work like late hours. And so
Uh-huh.
I remember picking him up from work one time, and he said he was hungry. So we stopped at like Burger King. This is back when I used to eat fast food. Okay,
Okay.
so we stopped at Burger King, and I remember him like flirting with the cashier, which he's a friendly person. So, that flirting didn't necessarily mean anything, but the way he was flirting, he just didn't even seem like the person that I knew. And I was like,
Wow.
that
Wow.
who is this person? Like, he was flirting like I wasn't even there.
Out of control. You couldn't take it.
What? This is it just I think I was taken aback because I was like, how is this happening? He didn't seem like he was new to this. You know what I mean? Like he
Right.
felt real comfortable with this
Mhm.
level of flirting. And so of course we argued about it. And I was told that I was overreacting and just all kinds of stuff. So I'm like, okay, like he didn't exchange numbers or nothing. You know what I mean? He wasn't
Right. Right.
utterly disrespectful, but it was real rude in my opinion, and I didn't feel comfortable with it. And I've never been a type of person to hold my tongue in a
Mhm.
relationship when I felt disrespected. So we just
Yeah.
argued.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I feel
Yeah.
like I won the argument. So then we moved on.
Okay. Yes, and Imani just says a thin line between being friendly and flirting, and that's true. And sometimes it's just a matter of us setting some boundaries for ourselves in a relationship, so we can at least with the person. Hey, that may be just the way that you operate, but I don't feel comfortable with that. Like just
Right.
being able to communicate with the person. I can't even. I just get shamed when I tell you the things that I overlooked in different relationships. So
Yeah.
that's part of being young. That's why it's so important that as seasoned women that we really have some very transparent and real relationships with younger women, so
Yes.
that we can kind of let them know what things that's just a result of them being young. So hopefully we can give them some things to look at that maybe we didn't have that kind of insight. I'm a huge believer in that. So
Yes.
let's talk about when there was a point in your relationship that you knew that you were in trouble.
Um, this is gonna sound terrible on my end, but so our when our second child was born, we she was born with a congenital heart defect. And
Mm,
so the first 5 months of her life, we lived at the Ronald McDonald House, which was walking distance from the hospital. And
mm,
so we spent a lot of time at the hospital, a lot of time at the house, because our son was about 6 years old at the time. So it was, for the most part, the three of us together. And I was still on maternity leave because, I went on maternity leave to have our daughter, and he was going to work. And I remember one specific day that I was feeling sick, like a cold or whatever. And so I couldn't go to the hospital. Number one, because our daughter was in ICU. So, like, I couldn't because of the germs. And then also, I just felt horrible. So I probably had the flu or something like that. And I remember my husband at the time, like, getting me some soup, uh, maybe some tissue and some orange juice, setting it on the dresser next to our bed, and was like, "You good? Okay, cool, I'm gone." But he wasn't going to the hospital, and he didn't start work for like hours. And so I'm like, "Well, where are you going?" And he, like, I don't think he answered me. Whatever it was, I didn't feel good about it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's when I started really paying attention, because for me at that time, there was nothing more important than our daughter who was in the
Right,
hospital. So,
right.
and we were at the Ronald McDonald House, so there was no need to really go anywhere, because one good thing about the Ronald McDonald House is that, like, your shelter is taken care of, your food is taken care of. Like, all you have to do is go visit your child in the hospital. That's really
Wow.
all you have to do. So I just was confused, hurt, wasn't sure
Yeah.
what was happening. So I started paying attention. And so when I started paying attention, then a whole lot of stuff started not lining up.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and so I found a whole bunch of stuff. One of the things being that he was having at least one adulterous affair. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was traumatic at an already traumatic time.
Yes, yes. When you're already dealing with the crisis of your child.
Right.
Yeah, I think out of everything with Reesa Teesa, I was just most devastated and could definitely relate to the part when she was in the hospital and she had the miscarriage and he was still dragging that lie on.
Right.
And
That was whack. I'm sorry.
yeah, yes, yes. And I think, when we come out of the biggest thing, I can't speak for other women, but I know for me, I think the thing that has been most devastating is and I kind of got that out of her 50-part series, is
Mhm.
when you take time and reflect on, like, what was I thinking? Like,
Right.
I do so much self blame that I don't even have an opportunity to really think about the men. I think so much about myself, like, wow, where was your mind? What made you tolerate? Like, what, that's the thing. But and then it's one thing when you're in your 20s, but I have conversations with women that's way way older than that, and I'm
Mm,
just always amazed at the things that's still being tolerated. But I
yeah,
still believe a lot of it has to do with self-worth, how much time we really spend on knowing ourselves, because the more you go through things, the better you're able to understand what you should tolerate and what you shouldn't. Because, it's going to take some give and take in any relationship, but some things is just too far. So you talked about you and your ex-husband being friends. Like, I need to know that anybody that I'm in a relationship with, do they respect me enough to be a friend at least, because there's certain things you're not going to do to your friend. You're not going to do anything to intentionally hurt your friend. And so it makes you question all parts of the relationship. Like, if this person was able to do this during
right.
that time, like, was they like really my enemy? And definitely
Exactly.
uh, a mate. So it's just really deep when we go through that kind of trauma. So so what was it? Give us a picture of, like, the day, if you can, the time that you said, oh, because we might do a lot of second guessing ourselves, go back and forth, but it's something about that day when you say, I don't care what it is, I know that I'm through, I know that I'm gone. Do you have any memories of that?
Yeah. Again, I don't know if it was just one day. I second guessed myself a lot, but the one particular incident that we were arguing because over the course of our marriage, there would be lots of new friends, and every single new friend was a female. So we had lots of arguments and stuff like that about these new friends. But when I would like kind of make it clear that I was uncomfortable, then I wouldn't really hear about that female friend again, right? And it might be a few months, several months before I would find out about another female friend. But there was one particular female friend that would not go away, no matter how much I explained that this was hurting our relationship. It was making me feel uncomfortable. He kept making up excuses for why this person needed to stay in our lives. And I know that we had a heated argument about it one time, and I was leaving the room.
Mhm.
Like I was done with this conversation, and I was walking up the stairs. It was like a split level house, and so we were in the bottom level, and I was walking up the stairs. And as I was walking up the stairs, I heard a crash, and I felt shards of glass hit the back of my leg. He had never been violent with me before. Um, and I just was like, oh, he's crazy. I remember thinking that. And I
Mhm.
think maybe 2 days later, my mom pulled me to the side and she was like, my daughter's name, she was like, she told me that your husband threw a glass at you and broke. Now, I did not know my daughter. I thought my children were upstairs on the third part of the house,
Okay, okay.
sleep. So when I found out that my children were aware of what was going on, I was done. I was
Yes,
I
yes.
can't do it. And I remember him saying something about like I never supported him. And oh, I mean like we didn't talk about this, but so in the opposite way of Reesa Teesa, my husband wasn't paying for anything. my
Oh,
husband
wow.
my
Okay.
husband was always claiming broke. And I remember, I think back to the court case. I remember going with his story that it had to do with selling drugs. And
Yeah.
so we was talking about how he was down on his luck or whatever. And so I became, like Captain Save a Hotel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, well, you'll never have to worry about that again. Like, I'm going to fund your
Yes.
business. I wrote his business plans. I was his startup money. You know what I mean?
Ooh, I
Like,
can relate.
I was that person. So when we got to the end and my daughter had told my mom that, he had thrown something at me, and I was like, okay, this, like, it was an eye opener.
Yeah.
But he said to me, I never supported him in his endeavors. And I was like, okay, it's clear to me now. You're absolutely insane. Like I
Yeah.
got like because
Yeah.
if anything else, I would question like other things, but that Negro, I can pull receipts. Like you cannot tell me that I did not support you. I have all the receipts, all
Right.
the records, everything. So yeah, I was like, yeah, he's insane. And
And
I
you
would,
know,
yeah,
go
I did
ahead.
wonder, huh? What'd you say?
No, go ahead.
I would say so. Like I said, my undergraduate degree is in psychology, and uh my master's degree is in child development. So I was always, I think, really consumed with diagnosing him
Yes.
and
Yes.
what his problem was. And so I feel like I wasn't done with my project until I had figured it out. So I was like, is he a psychopath? Because I really can't, like I just couldn't understand why he would lie. You know what I mean? It would
Yeah.
just be so many things. And I'm like, well, maybe not a psychopath, maybe a sociopath. And I don't think I had heard the word narcissist at that time. So I was
Hmm.
really trying to figure out what is this guy's issue.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Wow.
think he became more of my project than anything else, which obviously I do not recommend for anyone.
Right. Right. What a beautiful segue though into tell us about your healing journey because like I'm like really, really at a point in my life because of two failed marriages and then a string of other failed relationships in between there,
Yeah,
where I can be what did Imani say, wooed away. We take on projects. Listen, I
yeah,
can see it in my daughters. I'll tell them in a minute, look, you don't your mother was enough of a social worker. You don't need to be a social worker because we will definitely do that. But I think it's a really good segue for us to be able to talk about the happily ever after.
yes,
Because when you go through things like this, you could be so like I'm a deep believer. I love romance. I love all of that. But my tolerance level and my expectations for men for the most part is so extremely low because of those failed relationships and
yes,
my tolerance on just anything that's disturbing my peace. My first marriage was
yes,
10 years, the second one was 16 years. So that basically like my whole life, I got married at 16. So my whole life has been just a long period of time without being peaceful in a relationship. So
mm,
I'm just not overly consumed with the relationship because I know that's not going to equal peace. So talk to us a little bit about your healing journey. What brought you to writing your book, and how did you prepare yourself and create the space in your heart and in your life to really be able to attract your soulmate now?
okay. So like I said, so many things are like jumbled up as far as my memory goes and the order of things. But I do remember, as far as getting to writing the book, um, I've journaled my whole life, right? So
Mhm.
like she was saying, she had a video diary or something like that. Well, I've been writing since I was a kid. I don't know. I think I got my first journal when I was like 7 or something like that. So I've always written things down. And the older that I've gotten, I don't have time to write daily. So I typically write when I'm emotional. It's like my release. And so going back through my journal and seeing like, oh my, I can't believe I put up with that. I can't believe, wait, what am I saying? So those type of things. But I remember venting to like a friend and her cousin and her
Mhm.
cousin, and it was after I was done. After I realized he was insane and he had a real problem, and
Mhm.
he could not be my project anymore. And I remember it just kept getting lighter and lighter. So like probably the first couple of weeks, I cried because I'm like, he's my husband. He's supposed to be here with me. Um, it was those kinds of things. But then I started to realize I don't have to deal with this. I didn't argue with nobody today. I didn't have to ask for,
Mhm.
this bill didn't get paid or anything like that. So um, I just remember, and she said, you should write a book. And so at the time, I was thinking, okay, I'll just tell my story, but clearly I'm going to have to make it like a fictional book because I didn't want to, or at least change the names, because I
Right.
just wanted to give other people a way to healing, not really, you know, expose that person, so to speak,
Yes.
his
Yes.
name. So but it was just a thought. I'm like, okay, good idea, whatever. And so she kept sending me things. Like, so she kept sending me like all these advertisements for writers' workshops and stuff like that. So I was like, let me go ahead and go to this writers' workshop, before she asked me how was it, and I haven't been yet. So I went, and at the writers' workshop, it kind of reminded me of how you see on TV where you go to the AA meeting and you have to stand
Yes.
up and say, I'm here and what I'm writing about. And so I was telling people the idea of my book, and like I got an overwhelming response that absolutely not. This cannot be a fictional book. This needs to be a self-help book. So now,
Wow.
because my background is in psychology and education, of course I can't just write a self-help book without doing research and all of this stuff. So I started putting out ads to like interview people who thought they might have been in a relationship with a sex addict. And so I think I think there's about 7 or 8 couples that I ended up choosing for
Mhm.
my book. And just step by step, I was able to tell in the book the different stages and how I was able to get through it. So I think the first step is really to just expose it,
Mhm.
right? Expose the lies. Um, do your best not to accept a whole lot of excuses, and pay attention to whether or not people do what they say they're going to do. And I know,
Mm.
like, because we sometimes don't always follow through, or we might make mistakes, we give people a lot of grace. But
Yes.
literally, if they don't do what they say they're going to do over and over again, just it's not going to be good. And I
Right.
think that's an easy telltale sign, that you need to give yourself like a certain number of times, right? So like I'm good with 3 strikes, you're out. So
Yeah.
what I mean. You tell me you're going to do something and you don't do it, okay, that's 1 time. You do it again, that's 2 times. Third time, I'm like, okay, I'm done, because it's just going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 100 times.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's one thing. The other thing is to get through it. So how did I get through it? I pray. I pray a lot,
Mm.
and I prayed while I was in this marriage. But again, I came from a two-parent home. My parents were married almost 50 years before my dad passed away. I saw solidarity. I saw
Yes.
commitment. I saw tenacity. Like I saw so many things, resilience. And so divorce wasn't ever on the table in my mind.
Mm.
I know people are like, why didn't you just leave? I just kind of always thought that marriage was forever,
Yes.
and whatever we're going through together, we could fix it. And so it wasn't that I was afraid of divorce, it just wasn't an option in my
Mm.
mind.
Right.
I wasn't afraid to be alone. I just didn't, that just wasn't there. So, yeah, I prayed a lot. I mean, my prayer life was so strong at that time, stronger than it had ever been, even though I grew up praying. There was nothing new. I listened to a lot of music, spiritual music and secular music, whatever would lift my spirit, lift my
Yes.
mood, but also remind me that this is temporary.
Right. That's good.
Right, and I'm a survivor. So there's a song called Testimony by a man named
Mhm.
Anthony Brown. I believe I listened to that song over and over again daily for I don't know how many months. I listened to Victory by Ty Tribbett. I listened to I Want It All Back by Ty Tribbett. They're just songs that are like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Wow.
like this
Yes.
is gonna last. And remember who made you. Remember
Right.
what God says about you. And I just remember thinking. Oh, and I also on social media I saw Trent Shelton, and there's another one, but they had these posts, and they were clearly God fearing men. And I
Yes.
remember one of them saying, "This is not God's best."
Wow.
I said, you know what? You are right. God
Yeah.
did not intend for me to be stressing out every day. God
Right.
did not intend for me to be having patches in my head, from losing hair. God did not intend for me to be so forgetful, because I was all about excellence and,
Yes.
so it just was messing with who I was representing myself to be. These,
Mhm.
these songs kind of helped bring me back to what I knew I should be.
That's amazing.
And then setting up just standards. Like So I say in my book, you have to get a vision for what life looks like for you as a happy person. So like
Mm,
you didn't like right now, if you could just paint the picture of what you being at peace and having joy looks like, paint that picture and then decide what it's going to take to get there. And anything that takes you off that path, don't invest any time in it.
wow, that is so amazing. You have been just phenomenal, and we're just so grateful to have you as a publishing partner representing that Illinois area. And listen, guys, please grab the book because we're going to be featuring Aisha's book in one of our upcoming book clubs. You're also going to be able to find her as one of our contributors in our quarterly publication of Be Well magazine. And I love what Angel shared here. She said, prayer is the cheat code. And I love that. She is so right. Thank you for sharing that, Angel. So, listen, everybody, we cannot thank you enough for joining us today. Or even if you catch the replay, leave something in the comments so you can let us know how you felt about the drama, the trauma, and the testimony. And Aisha, we just, appreciate your time, and we're going to allow you to close us out today.
Oh,
Wait,
really?
Imani, you have a question here. Imani said, do you have any advice for dating for young adults?
Yes. So my advice is to number one, take time to get to know and love yourself. Know what you like and be guarded in the sense that don't let anybody come in and try to change that. Now, if they're going to come in and enhance your life, that's different, right? They're going to show you new things, new and exciting things, but not anything that's going to cut you off from what you like to do or who you like in your life. Um, that's number one. And then be clear about what you will accept and what you won't accept and stick to it.
I love that. Be clear, because sometimes we, especially if we've lived and don't have a lot of good examples of good, healthy relationships, we're not clear. But
Right.
we gotta create some clarity. So, because if not, we'll find ourselves tolerating a whole lot of foolishness. And
Yes.
let's see, Chief said, enjoyed this
No
conversation.
excuses.
Thank you, Aisha. Angel said Aisha is amazing. Yes, she is. Thank you for sharing your story to inspire others.
Thank
Yes,
you, Angel.
we appreciate you sharing your story and having such transparency. And again, what I love most is that now you're living your happy ending. So go
Yes.
ahead and close us out, and anything that you have coming up or anything that you want to share with our listeners.
Okay, so I have two things. Well, we already mentioned the book, so yes, get the book. I have had a lot of feedback on the book, and kind of like you said, you finished that 50 parts in one day. I've had a lot of people say they finished my book in a weekend, so
Okay.
it's a good read. I did have it reader tested before I actually published it, so it's a good book, you guys. I didn't just make this book to say I'm a published author.
Yes, right.
It's got some good stuff in there. So also, we didn't mention, but I am a life coach who specializes in relationships and helping busy, ambitious women find time for genuine love. So again, in my book, I go through what that means and what that looks like. But my online course, Know and Embrace True Love, is kind of me condensing my life coaching into a course. So it helped me to leverage my time, but it also allows you to get the information that you need on your time. Like you can schedule it however you want. And then also, I created a new company called Boss Chicks International, which is a directory, a registry, and a networking community of boss chicks. So a lot of companies are out there. Their purpose is to help new businesses get started. We are not exempt from that, but we are about helping people who are already in business, women of color, have access to resources and information that they may not have had before so that they can level up for real and increase their
Yes.
bank account and their reach.
Wow. Yes. And I'm so excited to be one of the founding members. We are
Yes,
just doing something, and we're building higher community in the Be Well community and helping to connect the dots.
yes.
So this is a
Thank you.
collaboration
Yes,
and pulling this all together. We want to give a shout out to We Merge Media because they handle all the technology for us, and they help us to publish a quarterly publication of Be Well Travel and Lifestyle magazine. So thank you all again for joining us. us. And Aisha, you enjoy the rest of your evening, okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. And yes, I appreciate being part of the Be Well family. And my team for
Yes,
Varsity International is amazing.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We're going to leave links in the Be Well Facebook group so you guys can stay in contact with Aisha because her book is going to be featured in one of our book clubs very soon. You all have a good rest of the day.
You. All
Okay,
right.
bye.
Bye bye.